Hello guys, welcome back. So it's actually been, I don't know, 4 months after the previous video, so it's been a while. And the thing we have talked about before are pretty much the low-level stuff. So we have variables, functions, all those things. And in theory, you could do almost everything with that, if not everything. But the thing is, uh, the operating system we're using, like Windows or Mac OS, they are done with a language called the C language. It's probably the first language, and that language doesn't have much more than what we have talked about already, and they're able to create operating systems with it. So you can do pretty much everything with that. But there was actually a lot of technical issues or difficulties to do some more high-level concepts with what we have before. Like, for example, if we want to represent a person, then we need to create a whole lot of variables because a person has so many different attributes like the birthday, the name, the age, gender, occupation, all sorts of things. So if you want to use just what we have for now to represent that person, then you have to have a whole list of variables and probably a whole bunch of functions also to represent what the person can do, like running, speaking, whatever, right? So that's a whole lot of stuff you have to write down, and you have to keep track of those variables and functions. What's more difficult is that if you wanted to create another person, then you have to do the same thing again, a whole list of different variables and functions. And what's even more tricky is that you have to keep them the same. And if you wanted to make a change to what a person should have, like you want to add one more attribute, like hair color kind of thing, to the person, then every person have to add that attributes and have to be added in, and you have to find those different parts that you have person represented and add that extra variable for every person. So that becomes bloated really quickly, and it's just not efficient or easy to organize. In that case, people start to think about how to represent real world objects like that. Okay, and that's when a concept called object-oriented came into existence. It's basically treating things like objects, and we put all those necessary variables and functions of like a person, right, into one entity, and that entity will be defined as a class or a template, and that template have a list of variables and functions this type of thing will have, and then you just create instances based on that template, or in other words, technically in programming it's called a class. So let's take a look at that. So you can create a class by just typing in class, for example. Yeah, and then you can let's create a class called animal. Okay, and then you have to type in a column here, and then you can go into the body of the animal. As you can see now, we have an indentation automatically created. All right, so now it's the time we put all the variables and functions we want the animal to have in here. So we can say we can create a name, okay, and that can be equals to animal as default setting, and then maybe we can have I don't know, age will be equals to 0 to start with. All right, we can now start to list a whole lot of stuff we want this animal to have. But anyway, so that's two things, right? We can also do functions. We can define function just like a usual function, and we can maybe say speak, or not necessarily speak. Not all animals can speak, I guess. Make noise, maybe. Let's see what kind of noise the animal can make, right? So make noise, and then we can, for now, just print out something like noise, making noise. Making noise. Okay, all right. So there is one technical detail though we have to do differently in a function. When you want to create a function for a class in the default settings, the function actually always takes one extra argument, even if you don't want it to, which is an argument called self. Now this can be written in some other words like whatever, but the thing is it has to take one. Okay, and I will show you why, but for now let's just remember that you have to have a argument in here. Okay, so this class is created as what I mentioned before. It's a template, so it's nothing has been created yet. It's basically a blueprint there, right? You know how the structure of animal is now, but there is no animal, no real animal yet. To create an animal, what you can do is then you can say maybe we can do a cat will be equals to, then we can ask this template to create one, and you have to have parentheses to do that. Oh. Animal, see, yeah, all right, and then we can run it. You can see nothing happens because we haven't do anything yet. Now we can then make the cat make noise by doing this cat dot make noise. Okay, and then parentheses, and then run this. You can see now the making noise here got printed. All right, so to explain this self thing, what's happening here is that when you're calling a member function like this, you do this dot, right, and then this. So, oh, this is also what I was saying, that member function is basically part of the animal, right? It's a member of this, and those are member variables, of course, in this case. So we're calling this member function here, right? Dot make noise, and we are calling a member function. It has to know which one I'm dealing with, right? The member function is a function underneath the hood. When you're calling this function, it has to know which one I'm calling with, which animal I'm dealing with. In this case, it has to know which one. So that's why when you're doing this, what's actually happening is that this part before the dots will be put into the parentheses as the first argument. So that's what's happening on the very bottom level. So that's why you need this one. So it takes argument, and the argument is actually the instance itself, the cat itself in this case. But we don't do that in that way. We just say cat dot make noise. Okay. All right. So that's gonna make the noise. This is also really helpful because if you wanted to make things more specific, we can say instead of printing make noise, we can say %s and then column, and then we can pass in the name of the variable, the name of the the class. So %, and then we can say self dot name. So this is basically asking the instance to use its name to be here. That right? We have learned printing before. Now we run this again. You can see this, it says animal making noise. And then what's interesting is now we can change the name of the cat by just say cat dot name equals to Katie, right? And then we run this again. You can see it becomes Katie, and then making noise. As you can see now, we are able to use this template to put all the arguments, all the variables and functions of this whole entity called animal together, and we can create instances by doing this, and we can change any attributes of these instances and call any functions of this instance, and we can always make that instance unique to have different name, different age, and sort of thing. So this is basically a function in a nutshell, a class in a nutshell. And this is basically what object-oriented is to begin with. All right. So yeah, that's going to be the first video about object-oriented. Let's move on to the next one where we can talk about some more cool stuff that structure can do. Okay. See you next time.